Hey everyone, I'm Michael, and welcome to another LittleBigPlanet tutorial. It's the second one in the day, and this one's going to be a little bit of a long one, and I'm going to split it into actual multiple parts here, because it's a very complicated concept that I want to show you guys how to develop. It's something that I kind of came up with on my own, as needed for my Pokemon A Friend Indeed series. It's called single-player co-op, and the best way to explain what this is basically, let's think for a second about the episode of Pokemon that I'm trying to recreate here. It involves both Ash Ketchum and Richie. They are both main characters in the episode, and they both are accomplishing the same goals. They're working together, they're cooperating. Um, and that's what I want to recreate in that level series. I want you to be able to play as both Ash and Richie. Um, Now, there are three ways I can go about doing this. The first is the way you would in a LittleBigPlanet story level. For example, some of the ones in the Cosmos in LittleBigPlanet 2, where you have a bunch of Sackbots following you, helping you shoot things down and stuff. You don't control the Sackbots, but they follow you. That's one way I could do it. I could have Richie be that Sackbot, and you would just play as Ash, or vice versa. Um, and I don't really like that approach because it's then I have to create an entire AI for Richie or Ash or whoever ends up being the CPU character. Because otherwise it's just going to be the player doing all the work and the other character just follows you along. And that's not really what I want. The other thing I could do is I could use multiplayer co-op. I could force the level in the gameplay settings to be, multiplayer. You have to have two players or the level won't let you in. But then I wouldn't be able to play the level because I only have one PlayStation controller and I'm only one person, and that's not exactly great. So, how do I allow you to play as both Ash and Richie as separate characters without making the level require multiple players? That's what single player co-op is, and I'm going to show you the first part of implementing it inside LittleBigPlanet 3 Create Mode. Now there's a lot you have to implement. You have to figure out checkpoints and how they all work, which is going to be the next tutorial once I figure that out fully. I'm playing around with it. You have to figure out how characters react, or how the pop-it is handled and stuff like that. You have to deal with power-ups. You need to deal with Sackpocket items. That's something that I don't even know if I can get implemented, honestly. So that's something we have to deal with. There's a lot of problems you have to deal with in order to get this working, but I'm going to show you the first super integral part, and that is the ability to actually control two characters at once. So we're going to start with that, and that's going to be this video. So we're going to start by going into our tools bag, and I'm going to go ahead and grab a Sackbot. Particularly two Sackbots. I'm going to place them in the level. These are going to be our player characters. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into each Sackbot and make sure that its animation style is set to Sackboy, and that it is set to neutral for the emotion. So, neutral and then Sackboy. There we go. You're free to label these if you want to with an actor label, but we're not going to do that in this video because it's not really what we want to do. However, what we do want to do right away is open up their little control panels here, whatever you want to call them, and we're going to grab a tag sensor, or not a tag sensor, a tag, and this one is going to be just our regular default green, and we're going to put it on both of them. And this is where I would recommend watching the tutorial I made on tag labels and tag colors, because we're about to label these, and it might do you good to understand what exactly I'm doing. So there's a Professor Oak one right there that we don't want. But this character, I'm gonna call them Ash. And we'll go all full out and say Ash Ketchum. Why not? So there's Ash Ketchum. And the game will save that label for you as long as there is at least one item in the world with that label. The next one we're going to do is Ritchie. And now Ritchie is labeled. So we have 2 Sackbots, they're labeled aklnthndr and Ritchie. We're good to go as far as that goes. So now we need a place for the player to go, or for it to sit and be, and sort of control these characters. Because right now if I pop in the level here, you can see that I'm here, and these Sackbots are doing literally nothing. So we have to make them do something. We're gonna start with putting down a sticker panel here. And I actually messed up. These need to be dynamic physics because it's gonna move. But we're gonna put this in the world. And we're gonna go into its tweaks and make sure that it has an opacity of 0%, so that in play mode we don't see it. Like so. Next what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab 2 things. We're gonna start with a controlinator. Actually, no, we're gonna start with a microchip. And we're gonna place that at the top of the little sticker panel here. And then we're going to grab a controlinator and place it directly below it. Not a movinator, a controlinator. There we go. And we're going to make sure that these boards are kind of not overlapping because it's going to make it easier to work. So now we have this whole little setup here where we have a floating sticker panel. We're not done yet. We need to go into our control seat here, whatever you want to call it. I turned into Comfort MC for a second there, but we're going to go ahead and set the radius to something sensible, and we're going to make sure that we automatically allow the player to enter when they go in range, and set the layer range to maximum 16. And then we're going to make sure that this is visible in play mode, or that it's not visible in play mode, sorry. I was reading the tag, not actually explaining what I was doing, but yeah, we want this to be invisible in play mode so that when we go into play mode, we don't actually see the controlinator, because the player's going to be in it, and that's going to give us this effect right here, where Sackboy he looks like he's not in the level. This is how we would do it in LittleBigPlanet too. We have to do it this way because you can't really easily switch between custom players or custom characters. There's a whole animation and it's annoying, and I want to get around that, so we're doing this the old-fashioned way. Anyway, now what we need to do is we need to somehow set up a way to follow these characters. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this circuit board, and we're going to raise its height a little bit, and we're going to go into our Poppet, and we're going to grab a selector. So we're going to do a 2-port selector. You're going to need as many ports as you have characters. So I'm going to put a 2-port down. And I'm gonna sneeze right in the microphone and try to narrate myself sneezing. Apologies for that. Anyway. What we're gonna do is we're gonna grab the L2 button here. And coming off the L2 button, we're gonna wire this straight into the cycle pin of this selector. So when we press L2, it's gonna cycle between the active player. That's what we're about to set up. So now we're gonna grab 2 followers, or rather 1 follower, but we're going to make 2. We're going to go into the tweak before we start placing this down. We're going to set the movement speed to its maximum value of 100. And the same thing for the in-out speed. Next, we're going to set the strength to 100, or rather the acceleration to 100. And we're going to set the radius to infinite. I do plan for these levels to be heavily dynamic thermometered, but in this case, since it's a player object, it's always going to be loaded in anyway, so it doesn't matter what we do here. So layer awareness is going to be 16. And we're going to go ahead and change this so that it doesn't follow a player, but it follows a tag. And that tag is going to be green, and it's going to be aklnthndr. I'm going to pause the game before I place this down, but the moment we unpause, we should see that it's going to follow aklnthndr. So I'm going to place this right at the top here, and we're going to actually copy this and paste it, but with a different label. This time, Ritchie. So now we're going to take the selector here and wire the first port, or the first output into that first aklnthndr follower, and the second port into Ritchie. Alright? So now if we unpause, we should see that happen. So if we go into play mode here and hop inside, you can see that it looks like we are this Sackbot. But as you can probably tell, we can't move them around. So that is where the controlinator comes in. So I'm just gonna pause and close all this. And I'm gonna grab this sticker panel here and raise it up. So this is where this controlinator comes in. What we need to do is somehow set it up so that we can actually control the characters. So we're gonna go ahead and go into this controlinator, and we're gonna make it a transmitter on blue. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go into this character here, since we know it's gonna be the one that's controlled, and we're gonna go ahead and grab another controlinator and place it on the board, and this time make it a receiver on blue. And then we'll pause. So now if we start playing the level here, you can see that we are now controlling this Sackbot. And the illusion is even better when we go into preview mode. As you can see, it looks like I can even do the whole 6-axis control thing where I can move the head around and stuff like that. It all works. In fact, I can even slap the Sackbot here. Problems start to come, though, when we switch characters with L2. As you can see, we are now following this Sackbot, but still controlling the other Sackbot. And this presents an interesting problem. We're gonna just go back in there and make sure that we control the right Sackbot. There we go. This presents an interesting problem. How do we switch which Sackbot we're controlling? First of all, let's get it working so that we can actually control the Sackbot. So the idea here is that we go and grab that same controlinator that's a receiver on blue, and we paste it in. And then you're immediately going to notice a problem once we start to actually control these. So it looks... Okay, so there's the problem. No matter which character we control, both of them respond to the same movements, and that's not ideal. So what we need to do is somehow we need to enable or disable those controlinators based on which character is active. So how do we do that? Because, well, if you look in the controlinator's inputs here, there's only one, and I can't even get to it, but it's to eject the player. So this one would have it. The others might not, but this one does. As you can see, it's a controlinator, and the only input is to eject the player. That's not handy. How do we disable them? Well, this is where we handle our inner comfort MC, and what we're going to do is we're going to grab a Microchip, and inside it we're going to place another Microchip. And inside that Microchip we just placed, we're going to move the receiving controlinator inside it. Like so. So in essence here, what we have is a controlinator inside a Microchip, inside a Microchip, inside a Sackbot. And this is great. This is what we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move this over here. And we're actually going to delete this other controlinator here. Alright? Close out of this Sackbot for now. What we're going to do is we're going to grab this circuit board, and we're going to set it up so that we can actually receive a signal when this character is active. So we're going to grab a remote tag sensor, and this time we're going to set it to blue. And we're gonna label it with whichever character this Sackbot is. I believe this one is Ash. I could be wrong, though. We're gonna just go ahead and check. Nope, I am wrong. This is Richie. So, we're gonna go in here and make sure that this is set to Richie. And we're gonna wire the, we're gonna do two things. We're gonna wire this into the microchip here with the controller in it. And then we're gonna wire it into the idle behavior. And then what we're gonna do is, just because we want Richie to follow Ash, when Ash is the active character, we're gonna go ahead in here, and we're gonna set this up as a follow waypoint behavior. And we're gonna follow the green label, or the green tag labeled Ash Ketchum. Alright, and then we're gonna go ahead and grab a NOT gate, and we're gonna wire the NOT gate into the behavior, and the tag sensor into the NOT gate. So, let's unpack what we just did here. What we did was we took this remote tag sensor, we labeled it with Richie and colored it blue, and then we wired it into this microchip here, which has a controlinator inside it. That's how we're going to disable the controlinator when Richie isn't the active character. Then, what we also did is we wired this tag sensor into a NOT gate, which is then wired into a follow waypoint behavior for Ash Ketchum. That makes it so that when Ash is the active character, Richie will follow him. Likewise, we also wire the active tag sensor into the idle behavior that comes with the Sackbot by default. And that makes it so that Richie stands still when he's active, except not really, because when he's active, the controlinator will override him. So that's what we did. Now we need some sort of way for Ash to have the same behavior. So what we're going to do is we're going to move Richie over a little bit. We're going to collapse his microchip. And we're going to go ahead and open Ash's circuit board here. We're going to grab this circuit board, or this microchip, and we're going to copy it. And it's going to have an output pin on it. We're going to wire that into the behavior. And all we need to do is reset these tag labels. So inside here, we're going to set this to be Ash Ketchum. And then inside the behavior, we're going to set the waypoint label to be Richie. So it's the exact same behavior. We can close out of these Sackbots, we're good to go. So now we're just missing one thing. Because as you can see, both the characters kind of think they are inactive and they're following each other, and now they're standing in one spot. That's not ideal, that's not what we want at all. So we gotta fix that. What we're gonna do is we're gonna pause the game, we're gonna grab onto the controls here. And we're gonna unhide everything, there we go. And inside this circuit board, what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna grab a tag. And we're gonna set it to blue. And the first tag is gonna be labeled Ash Ketchum. Then we're gonna grab another tag, and it's gonna be set to blue, and it's gonna be labeled with Richie. You might want to match these up with the followers, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna wire the second selector into Richie's tag, and the first selector output into Ash's tag. And we're gonna unpause the game. And once we get out of here and go into play mode, what should happen is only one character actually receives the controls, and the other just follows us. So as you can see, it's working really well. We can of course access our puppet and everything. It works. It's doing everything correctly. So yeah, that works remarkably well. And of course, if I press L2, as you can see, Ash kind of walked over, or whoever character was active walked over there and started following us, and then we're controlling the other Sackbot. So yeah, this is the first part of single-player co-op. And you know what else? You know what else I preserved in single-player co-op? I preserved the ability to slap. If I can do it. There we go. I preserved the ability to slap a character, and it works just like you would in LittleBigPlanet online. So even that feature got implemented. Anyway, the next feature that we'll have to work on implementing is the ability to have checkpoints, because just like in LittleBigPlanet multiplayer, you want each character to have separate life counters. So if Richie loses a life, we want Ash to not lose that life. So that's something that we want to do. But I haven't quite figured that out just yet. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. As always, I've been Michael. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you haven't already, feel free to join the Discord server so that you can see what I'm working on and be a part of what goes into these levels. And anyway, I've been Michael. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.